Meeting to order. We'll begin with adoption of the agenda, and with that, Director Vallejo, are you with us? Director Itmeyer, are you with us? We'll go ahead and proceed. So,
Hey, this is Tim Itmeyer from San Bernardino. I'm on the line.
hi, Tim.
Hey.
Okay, so there is one change to the agenda before you approve the agenda. It's not a change to the agenda itself, but rather the agenda packet for consent item 8B, Romanet number 6, the Garrison Brothers bill. The bill's listed on the agenda as $85,838, and it actually was listed too high. We have a substitute invoice that we received yesterday, and the amount is 50,838.30 cents. That 30 cents is important. So that's the new invoice. So we would recommend that the agenda be approved with that change to the agenda packet.
Motion, we approve the agenda with that change.
I'll second it. Do we need to check for public comment first?
We'll bring back for public comment. Do we have any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, any public comment on the phones? There are none, so we'll bring it back to the board for a motion. We have a motion and a second.
Yep.
Chairman Hayman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Peters,
Aye.
Director Itmeyer,
Aye.
Director Griffin,
Aye.
Director Vallejo. Motion carries.
Okay, with that, we will now adjourn into closed session. Public comment on the closed session. None on the floors, and I see none on the phone. So now with that, we will adjourn into closed session.
Hey, this is Tim Itmeyer. I'm on the line.
We can hear you, Tim. And Director Vallejo, do we have you online?
Yes, I'm present.
Very good. Okay, we will now begin with open session, and we'll start with report on closed session with Keith Lemieux.
Sure, 1 second. Oh, there we go. So the board met in closed session to discuss the items identified in the closed session on the agenda, including water rights acquisition as well as various litigations. In each case, the board received a report from staff on those matters. No reportable action took place. But Mr. Chair, I want to talk about one other piece of litigation that might be of interest to the board while I've got the floor, and that concerns the Las Posas groundwater adjudication. That we just got a signed statement of decision from the judge yesterday evening. And the reason I think this may be of interest to you is that like this basin, it's a groundwater adjudication in which there is a GA that's been assigned and that had adopted a GSP. So they're a little bit ahead of us. This was a settlement, and the settlement was between almost all of the pumpers as well as the groundwater authority itself. So in some respects, it may hint at a way forward in our case. The thing that I think you might find most interesting is that one of the core elements of the settlement, in fact, the thing that brought the GA to the table was the adoption of a PAC and tax system, and not any PAC and tax system, but in fact the one that was from your bylaws that Phil Hall and I drafted years ago. And in fact, the first draft of the settlement proposal was literally just the language from our bylaws. It got adapted, it changed quite a bit with all of the attorneys and the negotiations, but it started as our PAC and TAC. And that was very important to Fox Canyon, the groundwater authority, because they felt that that was the right mechanism to improve public participation, to get public feedback, and to get public acceptance of management decisions going forward. So I thought you guys would find that interesting. The other thing that we might one day borrow from them that is interesting is that the reason that this settlement was reached was because the pumpers agreed that the physical solution would be managed according to and use as the primary source the groundwater sustainability plan that had been adopted by Fox Canyon. And in fact, the court, in entering the statement of decision yesterday, found that one of the key reasons that this was a valid action by the court was that the physical solution was completely compatible and based on the groundwater sustainability plan. So unless you have any questions about that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Okay, so if everyone will please join me in standing and facing the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next we will have roll call.
Chairman Hayman,
Present.
Vice Chair Peters,
Present.
Director Itnire,
Present.
Director Griffin,
Present.
Director Vallejo.
Present.
Okay, next we'll have public comment. This time is reserved for the public to address the board about matters not on the agenda. No action will be taken on non-agenda items unless authorized by law. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Do we have any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, do we have it? Oh, we'll backtrack. We do have public comment from the floor.
Thank you. Judy Decker, representative on the PAC from the Eastern Kern County Resource Conservation District. Mr. Lemieux, I found your comments about Las Posas very interesting. I wonder if perhaps at the next meeting, or you can email David, who can email them to PAC members, what changes, substantive changes they made in their PAC and TAC policies. Thank you.
I can actually talk about that a little bit right now if you want me to briefly
ahead.
respond. I thought you guys would appreciate hearing about this because I know we think of ourselves as a place with a lot of strife, so it's interesting when we become the model to resolve strife in other places. That's, I guess, encouraging. I hope it's encouraging anyway. And maybe the resolution we got over there can be a model for resolving strife here too. The changes that were made were not substantive in a way that's meaningful to us. The Las Posas Basin, what's called the Las Posas Basin, is actually probably 2 groundwater basins, in fact. So a lot of the changes that were made had to do with getting PAC representatives from both basins. It's also a basin where there are large mutual water companies that supply water for ag interests in different parts of the basin. There's a number of them. And so we had to sort of balance out to make sure that there are representatives from those entities. And so there was a lot of, there was a change on who the representatives were and how they were appointed. So that was primarily it. There were some differences with the TAC and the way the TAC's set up, but we can talk about that at some other time.
Any other public comment from the floor? Seeing none, any public comment from the phones? Caller, go ahead.
Hello, this is Renee Westerlus. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Renee, go ahead.
I just have a question that might have to do with me not remembering something. Has the Groundwater Authority Board signed any letters stating a position on AB 560?
Are you asking if the Groundwater Board did approve a letter or send a letter approving 560? Is that the question?
Yeah, in favor of or
In-
opposition.
In support of? Yes.
Okay. What meeting was that done at?
I believe the last meeting, we went over it, yes. Yes, it was last month's meeting.
And Renee, there's going to be a legislative update as part of the general manager's report.
Okay, because I just don't remember seeing it in the packet. I thought I went over the packet.
We were looking for board direction at the previous meeting, which is why the official letters were not in the packet.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other public comment on the phones? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to item number 7, board member comments. Any comments from the board? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 8, consent agenda. This will consist of approving the minutes of the board meeting on May 10th, 2023, and approve the expenditures of B1 through B6. And does any member of the board wish to have an item pulled? And seeing none, any member of the public wish to have an item pulled? Seeing none, we'll bring back to the board for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve with the amendment of Garrison Brothers invoice changing from 85,000 to the 50,838.30.
I'll second that motion.
Chairman Hayman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Peters,
Aye.
Director Griffin,
Aye.
Director Itnyer,
Aye.
Director Vallejo.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item number 9, board to receive and file the 2021 financial audit from Brown Armstrong. And this will be with Carol.
Thank you. We do have the audit report in the packet, but I believe we have a representative of Brown Armstrong attending virtually to review this for us. Do we have Mr. Young?
Yes. Good morning. How are you guys doing today? So I'm here to present the results of your December 31st, 2021 audit. Very quickly, the purpose of an audit is for you to hire an independent third party, in this case, Brown Armstrong. Our job is to come in, perform various tests, look at your financial statements, perform tests over your revenue, your expenditures. We look at your cash balances and investments. We obtain third-party confirmations on those balances. We vouched your accounts receivable. We tested your capital additions. We looked at your accounts payable. We do all this testing in order to render various opinions. And I'm pleased to announce on page 1, we've issued in our audit report an unmodified or clean opinion that is the highest form of assurance that we can render on these financial statements. In addition to that report, on page 20, we issued a report on the internal controls in accordance with governmental auditing standards. I'm pleased to announce that report also was clean. We did not find any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, so everything looked good. Finally, the last report we issued is required communication with the board of directors. That is SAS 114. There was no new accounting policies implemented in the current year. The most significant estimates was your allowance for doubtful accounts, as well as your useful lives of capital assets. We did not encounter any major difficulties in performing the audit. There was no disagreement with management, and there was no audit findings. So overall, a very clean report, no issues. With that, I would open up to any questions anyone has.
Thank you, sir. We'll bring it back to the board. Any members of the board have comments or questions?
I do have one question, or actually it's a comment. If we could go to page 17 of the audit, in the paragraph that reads, impact of litigation on collection of basin replenishment fee. There's one paragraph in there that kind of strikes me as weird, and I would be inclined to move forward and approve and file this, but I would like to have this paragraph removed, or at least noted that the district disagrees with this paragraph. But what it basically says is, in fact, the $4.2 million that has been collected so far has come from another party, the Indian Wells Valley Water District, that is a member of the authority and did not challenge the fee. The authority currently has lawsuits pending to collect the outstanding fee from Searles Valley Minerals and Mojave Pistachios LLC. If this effort is successful, these parties will be liable to pay the authority several $million more than the authority has already collected. If the fees cannot be collected, the authority will continue to collect from the district. In no event will the outcome of these lawsuits eliminate the obligation of the district to pay the replenishment fee. So I would like to have the last statement either removed or at least noted that the district has never stated that, because if the replenishment fee was found to be unviable, we would not continue to pay that, or there's no guarantee that we would continue to pay it. And each payment that the district has made has been under protest.
I'd like to address that.
Go ahead.
So I know that the auditor worked very closely with my offices and special counsel when it made that statement. That's a legal statement. I stand behind the statement, including the last sentence. Everything in it is correct. And Mr. Young, the accountant, wanted to be very clear before he put that in there that that was a supportable statement, and it is. So my recommendation is that the audit get adopted as stated.
Okay, so if it is adopted as stated, it would still go on record that the district objects to that comment, that we did not make that comment correctly, correct?
Your comments today are of record.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? We'll bring it back to public comment. Any public comment from the floor?
Judy Decker again. I have a question. The paragraph that Chuck Griffin just read indicated that only Searles Valley and Mojave Pistachios were not paying the replenishment fee. Does that mean that Meadowbrook Dairy and I can't remember the name of the Conway Pistachio Orchard, but they are paying my question is, are they paying the replenishment fee also?
They are using transient pool water and therefore are excused from paying the replenishment fee currently. That won't necessarily be the case when that water runs out.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment on the phones? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back. I don't believe there's any action on this item, just we're receiving and file. Okay.
You want an action? Could we have a motion to
Sure.
receive and file?
I'll make a motion to receive and file.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second. It's John Vallejo.
Chairman Hayman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Peters,
Aye.
Director Griffin,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Itnire.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Before we move along, I just want to thank Brown Armstrong for completing this audit. We appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 10, communication and engagement plan updates and board direction. This will be with Carol.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so in your packet, you have a brief staff report. If you recall, last month, at your request, you asked us to take a look at the communications and engagement plan update that the PAC has developed for us. And so what I've done is prepared a brief summary of the report. We've also included that that updated plan in the agenda, although it was presented to you, Mr. Janis, on behalf of the PAC, provided this updated report or this updated plan back in, I want to say September, perhaps, or October. At any rate, this was generally developed as a result of the fact that we've moved from planning to implementation phases of our groundwater sustainability plan, and also in response to a comment in our approval letter from the Department of Water Resources to provide some additional information on our communications elements as required in the GSP regulations. So the PAC was good enough to put a lot of work into reviewing the existing plan and providing some updates, providing some detailed information. And the plan itself, or their recommendation, is here in the packet, again, for your review. But my recommendation is that if you agree, I'd like to develop a work plan based on what's recommended here, because we do have limited budget. We're halfway through the current year, calendar year, but we can look at what we have available for this year and also do some planning for next year and come back with a work plan for you that takes into consideration the recommendations that the PAC has provided and present that to you for your consideration, hopefully by next month.
Thank you very much. So we'll bring it back to the board. I'd like to start with just a couple comments, but I'm very excited about this. Reading through, it's a very extensive plan. I'm in very much favor of implementing this, and I know the budget's tight, but I'd like to see us be able to get this off and running as quickly as possible. My question is, it's kind of having read through it, it's a bit of a working in progress, with some changes as far as I'm thinking like on the when information that we want to put out is, whether it's a quarterly basis or on a, as need basis, but, those types of things would be kind of formulated, once a director or, someone heading it up would be installed. Is that correct? Yes, I'm mainly directing this question to Dave.
I'm not sure I understand your question. It was meant to be, at that time, a snapshot of what we recommended the plan would, what the communications and engagement recommendations and the plan changes, and those were two separate things, obviously interrelated, but the plan was the formal documentation for the GSP update, and the recommendations were how you all go about your communications, procedures, processes, and the culture of communication. And then it would be, we were going to periodically review, either at your request or our observation and request, updates to that as we saw necessary by changes in the situation, changes in the plans, some of the management actions, for example. And Carol was spot on in saying the plan was initiated primarily because the initial communications engagement plan, as well as the GSP, was aimed at formulating the GSP. And this was the implementation phase, which has had some separate and but amplified communication opportunities. And so if there's changes in the management actions based on situations that changes, technical data that changes, litigation, any of those things that we could put in, we would open that up. So what I'm speaking for, without having met the PAC, we like the approach of getting the task laid down and budgets assigned. That was one of the concerns at the bottom of our list about would we be able to execute all this and how much for the budget. So we appreciate this action very much, and I wouldn't hold it up depending on, thinking that there's something else we need to do. You can go right ahead. We want to see that. We want to see the integrated master schedule and many of the other components of the communication and engagement plan.
Very good. Okay, we'll bring it to the board for any comments or questions.
I just also want to say thank you for bringing this up, and then if we can discuss this next month with a further detail, that would be great. I think that's making a great stride forward. I would also, if we could add, I believe there's several things that we could implement that won't have a cost. So if we could discuss those also, I don't want to be limited on what we can discuss. So if it's possible to add in, time changes, having the meetings in the evenings and stuff like that, we can discuss and take action on that maybe next month and move forward on different items, that would be great if we could leave it open for discussion, because I believe there's many suggestions in there that would not have a cost or an impact to a budget. So thank you very much.
Okay, hearing no further comments from the board, we'll bring it to the public for public comment. We'll start with public comment on the floor.
Yes, as being involved with this item, first on a subcommittee and of course on the PAC committee, I offer the suggestion to you, Carol. I think the idea of bringing a work plan for the rest of this year and next year is a great idea. I suggest you kind of look at it and do it in an outline form as to what is a top level thing to do on a given subject. The PAC put in hiring a communications director, and obviously that will be a very expensive item, but there's many things that you can do and the board can approve that are top level, that again, like Chuck said, won't cost much money. And I suggest you do it that way, like having a column in the newspaper on a regular basis, whether the regular basis is quarterly or monthly or whatever. I think it's something you could do that the only cost would be your time in writing it. And I offer that as a suggestion to do it as an outline where you put the details and the heavy-duty stuff inside. People don't know who you are, what you do, and why you're here. So starting with those things, and I'm talking not about the, 4 of us who always come, and half a dozen or so that are on the phone as members of the public. I'm talking about the public at large. And no, everybody doesn't get the paper, but you have a website to put that same article on. It's been very useful for the water district to have periodic articles. So good luck.
Thank you, Judy. Any other public comment from the floors? Okay, we'll move to the phones. Caller, go ahead.
Hello, this is Renee Westerlusk, and I just have, I think, a couple questions, mainly questions. In today's packet where it has communications and engagement plan, the number 10, the summary sheet that gives background, discussion, recommendation. Under the discussion part, it says staff has begun to implement some of these recommendations. Can some detail be given to us on what has been implemented of these recommendations? That's my first question. And then the second question is, in the communications and engagement plan, number 10 on page 12, it says C&E contact lists, Appendix A and Appendix B. Have those been written yet? Because it was my understanding the PAC was leaving it to the general manager to have these created, Appendix A and B. And then the other question I have is last year, I think it was last June or July, there was supposed to be $60,000 set aside to help with the communication and engagement outreach. Has any of that money been used, and could we use it to pay for a newsletter or whatever would be appropriate outreach? Those are my questions.
Thank you, Renee.
Would you like me to respond, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Hi, Renee. Yes, we're working on some of these things as far as the budget goes. Yes, we've been using some of the funds that we set aside towards communication outreach. In fact, towards the last half of last year, we did a couple of different postcards, one for the shallow well mitigation program, one generally to basically inform the community about the Groundwater Authority and the Groundwater Sustainability Plan itself. We're working on a couple of other things. We're working internally to get some estimates for website improvements to see what we can do in terms of maybe recreating or improving our website, because we recognize that a lot can be available there, but it needs some work first to be, I think, to have everything we need there. Also, just working on things like a newsletter format or, an informational bulletin format. So yes, some of those things are in the works. And yes, we're applying some of that money. Some of it's also available for this year. And so that's what we'll be looking at. What's available? What can we do with it for the remainder of this year? And then what we want to budget for next year based on what the board would like us to do.
Are you going to be working on the Appendix A and B, or should that go back to the PAC?
I'm sorry. I'm not sure which ones you're referring to with that.
It's on number 10, I think on page 12. It says C&E contact lists found in Appendix A and B are used to send out IWVGA information relating to important updates, meeting packets, personal contact, shall be secured and not available to the public. And then there's another part, methods of communication. It doesn't really list all the methods of communication in this paragraph, but it probably should be in one of the appendix, either Appendix A or B.
Yes, I mean, we'll be working on that. It's not necessarily something that we've been specifically working on recently, but it will be part of what needs to be done. And
Okay,
again, this will be part of the work plan that we bring to the board.
Can I point out something? With the PAC, when specifically this was discussed, we offered the opportunity that there might be some volunteers from the PAC that would help with that. And we didn't, at the time, we didn't want to take it on ourselves because we recognized a lot of it was administrative functions that belonged under the general manager. But we offered to have some assist you in that rather than throw it back to us. And I still think that's probably the best procedure. And so we'll be happy to, working with the general manager, perhaps identify folks ready to do that.
Very good. Any other callers on the line? Okay, seeing none. We'll bring it back to the board for direction. Do we need to take an actual vote or just give a head nod? Is everybody in favor of moving forward?
Yeah.
Yep. So I think we have a unanimous consensus there, so very good. All right. Moving on to item number 11, Resolution 06-23, providing procedure to address legislative response needs of the authority.
I'm going to invite up my co-general counsel, Phil Hall, who's responsible for this particular resolution, to give the report.
Good afternoon. I believe it's afternoon now. Well, early morning, or late morning, I should say. This should be a pretty simple item, and as you'll see from the staff report, it's pretty short. At our last board meeting, the board adopted two positions on two bills that are moving through the legislature. Right now, the legislature season is in full swing. Those bills have been amended already once since the positions you took last meeting. I understand at least one, if not both of those bills will be amended at least once or twice more. And the purpose of this is to give us staff the ability to quickly respond to amendments as we need. To set the playing field a little bit here, I think we all know we've had Capitol Corps involved with legislation for some time now, and throughout our process of having this GA, we've been moving and working with legislation, and that has gotten us over, we checked it just recently, we've gotten $15 million in grant support and other assistance through those efforts. So what this is designed to do is to assist that and to assist us in responding to these amendments which occur quickly and need to be responded to, because with our meetings once a month, there would be certain things that we couldn't bring back to the board. Having brought letters and the positions to you at the last meeting, we felt it was important to quantify that we would be continuing what we had been doing, which is responding as we need. This provides a simple process which says if we believe there's something here that's not clearly within our adopted policies and procedures presently, that we can speak to the president, or vice president, and get direction on whether they believe we should bring it back to the board or move forward as we're proposing. And that's simply it. Just a real quick, simple resolution.
Thank you, sir. We'll bring it back to the board for any questions or comments.
I have a couple comments. I would like to see it stay the way it is, only because I feel it's important. We have a 7-member board, and there's 7 of us that can discuss it. And if our opinions may not always be the same, or they could be different, it could be a phone call, it could be a quick meeting. We're not paid an exorbitant amount of money or anything to have a meeting real quick, so I think we could do a phone meeting to take a vote, because essentially what this does, it leaves the decisions, in my opinion, to the big two, because right now it will always be the city or the county that is the president and vice president, if we're looking at past history also. So I would like to see it stay to where we either have to have a phone call meeting or have a live meeting for an update, because our opinions may be different.
If I can respond to that, part of the reason this is drafted is because the Water District adopted an opposition to one of the bills that we are supporting. They didn't provide us the opposition. I have asked for it yesterday. I still haven't seen the opposition. So we do need to respond, and we are doing so within the purviews of our adopted policies. So, for example, if the board president believes that our approach is outside of that, he can tell us no and bring it back. There is no ability to just have a quick phone call. That violates the Brown Act. We can't have quick special meetings either, because it's not really COVID time anymore where we can get on Zoom. So this is a response to us needing to be able to respond quickly to amendments. And frankly, in this instance, quickly to a letter that the Water District has sent, taking an opposite position of this GA board that we haven't seen nor been provided.
Okay, and to answer that comment, the district did write a letter in opposition to Senate Bill 560. And also last month, I stated that we would like the district's name removed from Senate Bill 560 because we did disagree with that. So, and that covers my point exactly, is we could have a different opinion, and we have 7 directors that could discuss it, and maybe we would not all feel the same way on every Senate bill or every Assembly bill that came across. We can have meetings if we post 48 hours or 72 hours. We could have an emergency meeting. It's legal. I'm not saying just pick up the phone and call every board member. I know we have to follow the Brown Act and
The
post,
problem is getting the
we could do
quorum.
that.
The problem is getting the quorum here. It's no longer Zoom where we can do Zoom meetings and phone calls.
Yeah,
Getting
that's
the
correct.
quorum is
I
correct.
can speak to that, because we've had situations, so we can do it under 24 hours notice, you're correct. And so that's true. The issue is nowadays, we have to have a quorum physically present, which means we need somebody to either come from Bakersfield or Inyo or all the way from San Bernardino to be physically here, and that's very hard to arrange on 24 hours' notice.
And if I could jump in, Director Griffin, I hear your points, and I don't disagree with you. I don't want any one member to do anything to undermine the board's authority as a whole. I agree with that completely, but I also think that as we've heard, it's not as easy to just have a meeting on real short notice. Things are moving very quickly in the legislative cycle. There's constant amendments, and personally, I don't see a problem with it as long as we're acting within the adopted policies, the authority's previous positions. I'm not saying to go and, go myself, Director Heyman, to go out on a tangent, anything like that, but there are very clearly established things that we've done as a GSP, directions that we're moving, and as long as they fall within that, I personally don't see an issue just saying, okay, yeah, we're going to sign off on this change to the letter or that thing. I mean, it seems like they're very minor things, not adopting entirely new policy directions or anything of that nature. And I do think, though, that in the near future, it would be a good idea to have a general policy platform brought back to the board that we can vote on, that's adopted as a whole by the board, that would serve this role. But I think in the meantime, as we're working through this legislative cycle, I don't think it would be out of the norm for one of the directors to have that ability just to sign off. I mean, that happens in the county constantly with the way things are moving. We're not always able to get an entire board together for a vote. So that's my opinion on it. Okay.
I think it's safe to say that if we're dealing with issues that are previously agreed upon by the board as a whole, and so if it's outside of that, then yes, it would be brought back before the board to get a consensus on whether to move forward with it. So I'm in favor of this resolution. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may, it's John Vallejo.
yes, go ahead, sir.
Yes, I generally agree with those last two comments as well. I think it's important that we do have a policy platform adopted to make sure that there are guardrails around this type of in-between meetings activity. And I agree with Director Griffith that this is not uncommon in terms of process for my county as well. We do have a legislative platform that's been adopted. We do have folks that advocate on our behalf in between board meetings, and the direction, the guardrails there are to be within the legislative platform that we've adopted, and anything different or outside of that would have to come before the board. So with that understanding in place, and with hopefully future direction to staff to bring forth a legislative platform to the extent we need one, I think I would be in support of this proposal as well.
Thank you, Director Vallejo. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Chair, if I may, real quick.
Yes.
We have heard the comments of having a legislative platform before, and we are working on it, but we couldn't get one to you in a time frame to respond to, in particular, these two bills. So this is not a substitute for that, and I should have said that at the beginning. This is a stopgap to a legislative platform, which you'll be seeing shortly.
Well, I think it's an exact example of why it's important to be able to act on a quick basis and have the availability, to do that. So I'm in agreement. Okay, we're seeing no further comments from the board. We will move to the floor for public comment. Okay, no public comment from the floor. We'll move to the phones. Caller, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, caller, go ahead.
This is Renee West-Lusk again. I support this resolution. I think it's only very practical to have in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Any other callers? Okay, seeing none. We'll bring it back to the board for a motion on item 11, Resolution 0623, providing procedure to address legislative response needs of the authority.
will move approval.
I'll second.
Chairman Hayman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Peters,
Aye.
Director Itnire,
Aye.
Director Griffin,
No.
Director Vallejo.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item number 12, Department of Water Resources request for supplemental monitoring to address wet conditions. And this will be with General Manager Carroll.
Yes, I'll start it off, Mr. Chairman. Recently, and I want to say maybe within the past 6 weeks or so, the Department of Water Resources has reached out to, I think, all of the groundwater sustainability agencies, asking if we are able to increase our groundwater monitoring efforts in light of all of the extra rain and water that we've been seeing this season. And so we had our water resource manager take a look to see what we could do. And there's a staff report here attached. They have a really good list. Jean Moran is I think on, or perhaps Bianca, but we have someone from Stetson here to add to it. But I'll just say that, we already do monitoring 177 wells twice a year over a course of 1 week in March and 1 week in October. And so what we're proposing to do is increase that monitoring. The cost of the monitoring increase would be about $20,000, and we are proposing to take that from review of the feasibility for the brackish water project, which we understand won't be available until the end of the year, and so the review probably wouldn't take place until next year. So it looks like we could probably just move the money around and use some existing funds there. And if you have some additional questions about how they're proposing to do the monitoring, I think I'll turn that over to Stetson, Bianca perhaps, or Jean if she's still here.
I think Jean is on.
Okay, so at any rate, if you have questions for our water resource manager team, they're available to answer. Otherwise, we're proposing about a $20,000, $20,100 increase for some supplemental monitoring, and this is at the request of Department of Water Resources.
Thank you, Carol. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none.
I do have a comment. Carol, the surface water that's being released by LADWP, I know the BLM gets a weekly report on how much is being released.
Yeah.
Would that be acceptable information for DWR on what kind of surface water we're actually seeing increased?
Well, I think they're looking for impacts to our groundwater levels. So I think what they're looking for is well monitoring where we can increase that.
I say put the two together and try to come up with a correlation between the two. Jean gave us a great presentation last month on it, and we may not actually see the bump that we think that we should see. Yeah. But providing them that information would probably be helpful.
Yep, I agree.
Any comments from Navy? Nope. Okay, we'll bring it back to the floor for public comment. Any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, any public comment on the phones? None, we'll bring it back to the board for authorization and for the implementation of the supplemental groundwater level monitoring plan. Do we need an actual vote?
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
Chairman Hayman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Peters,
Aye.
Director Itnire,
Aye.
Director Griffin,
Aye.
Director Vallejo.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 13, Water Resources Manager Report. This will be with Steve Johnson with Stetson.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Hayman, Chairman Hayman. Real quick, we will also be, it's always good to be in good graces with DWR, which we are, the board and the staff with GA, with the DWR staff. We will be letting DWR staff know that we are reacting to their recommendation and getting some more monitoring done. So that'll be good news for DWR staff. So you have a written Water Resources Manager report in the packet. It's pretty detailed because there is a lot going on, especially with the grant funds for the pipeline project and all that's going on there. There's a lot going on. We're having calls every 2 weeks with all the consultants, keeping track of where things are. But I'll just run the important things. One of the important things I think is that it's good to report is there's obviously money, because money is important to keep things going. So I'll report on the grant funds that we have and what's outstanding, where we're at. So the Prop 1 grant that we have, invoice 15A for the period of April through June 2022 was submitted. The payment request is about $17,500. It's been approved by DWR. We're just waiting for the money, so that should be showing up. That's 15A. 16A, covering July through September. Total request is a little over $21,000. DWR has that and is reviewing it. And invoice 17A covers October through December 2022. Total requested is almost $8,000. DWR is also reviewing that. For the Prop 68 update, invoice 16B for a little over $6,000 is approved. We're waiting payment. Invoice 17B, again, covering the period October through December, a little over $3,000 is approved. We're waiting payment, so things are going well. As you know, we're closing out these grants, and part of closing out the grants is getting our retention money. There's a 10% retention on all the payments they've made. So the retention request for almost 188,000 for Prop 1 and right at 33,000 for Prop 68. They were submitted at the end of February. We got some comments back from DWR on the format, and it was resubmitted on May 18th. So we should be hearing back on that at any time. On the Sigma implementation round 1 grant, this is for the big work that we're doing on the pipeline project. Invoice number 2 covers October through the December. Almost $333,000. DWR has it, is reviewing it. Invoice number 3 covers January through March of 2023. Almost $436,000. DWR has it, and it's under review. And the next invoice would be invoice number 4, which will cover April through June. It's due August 31st, so we will be prepared to submit that. The Sigma implementation round 2 grant application, I think we may have already reported it, but this was a very competitive application. We submitted anyway. We knew it would be competitive. It wasn't just for the critically overdrafted basin. It was for all Sigma agencies. So there was about, my recollection is, there was about 200 million available, and there was over 800 million applied for. So we did not get selected. We discussed it with DWR and didn't get any real information except that it was way over applied for. And they've already provided money to us on multiple occasions. So they're trying to spread the money around. So we were not selected under Sigma round 2 grant update. Carol, under the general manager's report, will provide some information on the community drought relief program, which is the next item. She'll provide that update. Then we go to the projects, recycle water program. Jeff Helsley is on board. We did get our final comments back from Bureau of Reclamation, reviewing the feasibility study that we were required to prepare to be eligible for federal grant money. Jeff, if you'd like to give a quick report.
Yes, good morning still, everyone. Yeah, the board authorized us to submit the Title 16 feasibility study to BOR on the recycled water project in March, and we did get just a few comments from them late last week. None of the comments are on any technical aspect of the recycled water project. Frankly, it's more in the background of the groundwater basin. So we'll be providing with them with some clarification. Should be pretty straightforward. We're going to contact them once we get it prepared and kind of walk them through them to make sure we've got everything covered that they want, and then we'll get that back to them.
Thank you, Jeff. And moving on, just going on, the imported water project, to let you know that The alignment study was completed and is now posted on the GA website. It was due to DWR by July 31st, so we've met those deadlines. The next couple of pages provides ongoing information, including next steps and milestones we're shooting for the design services on the project, for the environmental CEQA NEPA process, and for the right-of-way services that we're working on for the pipeline project. So you can review those issues. If you have any questions, whether it's the board or staff or any of the audience, certainly let us know. We'd be happy to respond. But I'm not going to go through all the details. It's all there in writing.
Still with us, Steve?
Things that will certainly take some load off of us on the technical work.
Steve,
yes,
Steve,
sir.
this is Chairman Heyman. We lost you for about 10, 15 seconds, so if you'd like to back up just a little bit.
Okay, I'll go back to the import water project and let you know. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, the import water project, the pipeline alignment study, that was the preliminary alignment study that PMP did. It's now posted on the GA website, so you have that. It was due to DWR not until the July 31st, end of next month, but we're well ahead of schedule, so we're in good shape there. The next three bullet points involve consultants that we've got working on the pipeline project, design services, environmental CEQA NEPA process, and also right-of-way for the pipeline services. There's detail on what we've been doing. There's also detail on next steps, and there's detail on milestones looking forward. So if anybody has any questions on any of those items, certainly send us an email or a text to let us know, and we'll certainly answer those in as quickly as we can. The next bullet item is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers planning assistance to the states program. This is where they're actually offering to help do some technical work related to the implementation of our GSP. We are working through tasks with the Corps. We've had a couple of meetings and calls, exchanged information on tasks. We're still working on that. The ability of the Corps to provide some of this technical work will take a little bit of the load off of us as the Water Resources Manager and the technical work we're doing, and obviously save some cost for us doing it because they're providing these things as in lieu grant funding. So we're working on that, and we hopefully will have some identified tasks here soon for the Corps to work on. Shallow well mitigation program, as you know, we brought a couple of issues to the board last meeting. We are still investigating other dry wells that were reported by DWR in relation to the shallow well mitigation program. And as I mentioned, I think Carol's going to make a report under the general manager report regarding some grant funds that the GA did receive. Last item under the Water Resource Manager report is really the Jean Moran items. Jean's not there. She's not in Ridgecrest this week. But
yes.
Jean, if you'd like to go ahead and pick up the last items. Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. So the technical items that have been completed during this last month is for data collection. We did go out for a couple days and did additional monitoring and downloading of data loggers for looking at the LADWP releases. We are processing that data now. Also, the spring 2023 groundwater data was checked and posted to the SGMA website. Part of this process also includes KCWA developing contour maps so that we check that there aren't any outliers before we post that data, and that has been completed. We also reviewed the surface water quality data that we collected from the LADWP releases. The GSP model configuration management plan during the last month primarily focused on conversations between the Water Resource Manager and Desert Research Institute as they start updating the model. And how this works is we get an update, then we do a draft update, then we review it with the technical model group for input about it, and then go into making a revision. So that is currently underway. The timeline, we're still on the timeline of in 2023 that the model revisions will be made. We'll have a calibration and sensitivity completed so that we're ready for doing model scenarios for the 5-year GSP report next year. The subflow from Rose Valley to Indian Wells Valley, we completed the first monitoring well construction. We will be putting in a data logger this week into that first well. The depth to water was approximately 96 feet. And then we will just see, we expect that water level to sort of settle down after the drilling. So we will be monitoring that. May 30th, we started mud rotary at the second well to the north. And then we needed to switch to air hammer for hard rock drilling. And currently, though it says 10 feet deep depth, we are at about 40 feet at the moment. We have not hit the water table yet, but what we've hit is a lot of fractured rock, which is made for slow drilling. The driller is working through that at this point as the best methods to go through the fractured rock. We also have been preparing projects for fiscal year 2024 consideration for Navy COSO funding. The LADWP releases, this number that we put in here was through June 1st. Through June 13th, the total release has been about 7,100 acre feet, with 6,100 acre feet in the El Paso Basin sub-area and 1,000 acre feet in the northern 2 release points. The 2 active release points right now are Freeman Wash area and Sage Canyon, both in the El Paso. The other 3 release points were discontinued either in April or in May. And that concludes the miscellaneous items. Thank you.
Good report, Gene. Thank you very much. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Steve. So we're back to the board. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it to the public for public comment.
Yes, Judy Decker. My question is for Steve. At the Water District meeting on Monday night, a member of the public got up and announced that the pipeline project was going to go on a road that is not yet in existence through the Rademakers from South College Heights Boulevard. I would like you, Steve, to again say where the proposed pipeline route from California City is going to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Jeff, are you on? Could you answer that question better than I can, I think, because I don't have the maps in front of me. My Jeff Helsley?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have the map either, and I didn't recognize the reference about where they were saying it might go. And I'd still need to pull up the map.
Let me ask it a different way. When Provost and Pritchard came and made presentations, the pipeline route that was selected by this board went up Nerelia Road. This is using roads rather than potential right-of-ways for clarification. The route was up Nerelia Road to the Garlock Road over to Highway 395 and then north on 395. Is that correct?
Yeah, we are coming up Neuralia Road. We do go east, then over and cross the 395, and then come up 395 to the Water District's tank.
Thank you. Could you say that again a little louder so the public who might be listening can hear you?
Certainly. Yes, the pipeline alignment connects to AVEX system in California City. It then goes north on Neuralia Road. It goes east and crosses the 395 and then follows the 395 before it comes into the Water District's site where we plan to deliver the water.
To a tank, yes.
And Jeff, just to clarify, when it comes off of 395, it would follow the road China Lake Boulevard into town, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I want to make sure we clarify that because as Judy mentioned, it was mentioned that it was going to come over the hill. And so we want to make sure we have the right information out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Judy.
Okay, any other public comment from the floor? Any public comment on the phones? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.
Okay, next we'll move on to item number 14, General Manager's Report with Carol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before I start the items that are listed here, as Steve hinted a couple of times, I'm happy to announce that Department of Water Resources notified us last week that we are awarded one of the grants that we applied for under the Urban Community Drought Relief Program. We had, you may remember, the end of January, we submitted 2 different applications under that program. One was for the Recycled Water Project and one for Shallow Well Systems Consolidation Project. And the one that we were awarded was $3.3 million for the Shallow Well Consolidation Project. So it includes about $3 million for the project cost itself, plus $300,000 for grant administration costs. So our work to make that happen will be covered as well. And we'll be working with DWR to get that grant moving and off the ground here soon. But we're really excited to receive that, and hopefully it will be really helpful in getting some of these shallow impacted wells consolidated into larger systems. So really great news there. Additionally, you have your financial statements in the packet and also a report from Capital Core Group. And I'm not sure if Jeff or Michael wants to add anything to it. I know they've been busy working on a lot of legislative activities lately, but I know, we've also covered some of that today. So anything that you need to add, Jeff or Michael?
I can add some, Carol. Assembly Bill 444, the California Defense Community Infrastructure Program, is up next week in the Senate Governance and Finance Committee. It is its first and only policy committee in the Senate. We are in support. However, Indian Wells is basically a sign-on to the City of Ridgecrest letter, who is taking the lead on that piece of legislation. We have already discussed AB 560. AB 779, we have taken an amend position. It is up for hearing also next week. AB 1205 has been pulled from calendar. This is the bill that deals with the sale of water in the state of California. It has been pulled from calendar and moved down the calendar for a few weeks at least. The authority is in an opposition to that particular piece of legislation at this time, and we are still requesting amendments through the office.
So that concludes my report. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Carol. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, any questions or comments? Or let's move to public comment on the floor. Any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, any public comment on the phones? None? All right, thank you, Carol. And with that, item number 15, date of our next meeting will be July 12th, 2023, and this meeting is adjourned.